Warriors and Guardians, this Guardian mode's back online. So I'm just going to make a video about the results of the local elections and what I think about Reform UK, how they've performed. Forgive me if I look a bit tired because I am tired after a long, busy day at work. But anyways, if you were to honestly ask me, have Reform done well in this election? Have they made that landslide victory that they are saying, that they are claiming that they've made in these local elections? Honestly, honest to God, I don't think so. I don't think this is a landslide victory for Reform. In fact, I think Reform's performance have been quite mediocre for this local election. You'd think that with all the support that they've been garnering recently over the past few months, and how positive, all the positive energy that's emanating from Nigel Farage, all the smiles and laughter, and all the campaigning that they've done um, in multiple areas of the country, you'd think they do really well. But in all honesty, from the way that I see the stats and the numbers on the results of the local elections, I don't think Reform have done that much impact as I'd have imagined. Um, the only victory that they have secured is in Runcorn, but they barely scraped by 6 votes in the Runcorn area. They made some victories in multiple areas like Hull and West Yorkshire, I believe. Which is something worth mentioning. But honest to God, I think Reform. If none of this drama had happened, a lot of this throwing Tommy under the bus, Richard Tice calling us that lot, throwing Tommy Robinson supporters off to the wayside, abandoning Ben Habib, and all this drama with Rupert Lowe, Nigel Farage coming out, telling us that it's a political impossibility to deport mass amounts of illegal migrants, and him pandering towards the Muslim community, saying that we can't politically alienate the Muslim vote, and all of these things that have happened. If they didn't happen, can you imagine the landslide victory that Reform could have made in these local elections? And another bonus opinion that I have is that a lot of these so-called loyal Reform voters, I don't think they're loyal at all. Do you genuinely think that people who are voting Reform genuinely support Reform in the first place? I don't think so. I think that a lot of voters have been using Reform as a proxy in this specific election to send a message to Keir Starmer, to the Labour Party, in a tactical voting kind of strategy, to send them a message to tell him that we don't want this tyrannical control that you have over the British people. We don't want inheritance tax being thrown at farmers. We don't want this winter fuel allowance taken away from pensioners in the way that Ed Miliband is pursuing his net zero goals, and the way that David Lammy and Starmer have practically insulted Donald Trump and JD Vance in the White House, the way they've handled foreign affairs, and handled the whole Ukraine war, and everything that's been involved in the political side of things with Labour, with Keir Starmer and his team, the way they've failed the victims of the grooming gang scandal, and obviously the Axel Rudikabana Southport incident. I think people are just clearly sending Keir Starmer a message that we are trying our best to vote you out of power. And all they're doing is using Reform as a proxy. It's a whole tactical voting strategy. I don't think people are as loyal to Reform as Nigel claims to be the case. So I think that once the hype around these local election results has finally gone down and is over, once the dust has truly settled, I think people will start to catch up with the news, because a lot of people still aren't clued in as to exactly what happened between Rupert Lowe and Nigel Farage, and a lot of the history that Nigel Farage has. A lot of the people that are coming out, people like Catherine Blakelock, Jared Batten, a lot of people are coming out and saying that, Nigel Farage, he's not the one to lead this country. He has this whole messiah complex about him, this celebrity figure that he thinks he is. Everything that comes out of reform comes out of Nigel's mouth. Everything under reform is under Nigel's leadership, and he treats the Reform Party like he's revolving everything around himself. It's all about Nigel, 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 and nothing goes past him. This is the way he does things, and people are starting to take notice. More people will take notice, and more people will abandon ship in the same way that Nigel Farage tossed Rupert Lowe around like a rag dog. And as soon as, once he noticed, oh, Rupert Lowe isn't really of use to me, he isn't really serving my personal interests, and he's actually criticising reform, so I'm just going to slander his reputation, destroy his image, and toss him to the wayside. In the same way that Nigel Farage has done this, a lot of these voters are going to toss reform to the wayside, jump off the reform bandwagon, abandon ship, and run for the hills to another political party. And obviously, I have to tie in Ben Habib's Integrity Party and UKIP into the conversation, because I'm saying it time and time again. These small right-wing parties need to form a coalition. This will be a major, formidable opponent to go up against the Uni Party, to go up against Reform. Because believe you me, Reform aren't going to make it to the next general election. I guarantee you. Reform are not making it to the election. Nigel Farage, support for his party and the Reform leadership is going down exponentially. Don't listen to people like June Slater-Trader, that smitten kitten for Nigel, Alex Phillips, Matt Goodwin, Andre Walker, these plastic people who just have no authentic thoughts and opinions about it. They brandish about the same opinion time and time again. We have to vote for reform because they're our only hope. We only have 4 more years to save this country, and that voting for reform is a vote away from Labour, and our whole goal, our intention, is to take Labour out of power. What's the point of doing that? That's just tactical voting, basically. That's the same thing that we've been doing time and time again. That's the same thing, the same method we've been implementing to vote Boris Johnson in, to vote the Tories in. And look what they've done. All they've done is betray this country, betray their voters, and betray the British people by letting them down and not taking action. Making their actions commensurate with their promises and intentions set out at the beginning of their manifesto, at the beginning of the election. So I think there's a lot of work cut out for Nick Tanconi to lead UKIP. I think he needs to do a lot more campaigning, a lot more speeches. He's doing really well with these protests and demonstrations. People are starting to notice, hey, UKIP is starting to garner a lot of momentum. And people like you and me need to come to these UKIP demonstrations and, lend your voice to the voiceless. Lend your voice to a party that genuinely believes in the people, genuinely wants to mass deport illegal immigrants. We don't want this lukewarm, hot and cold approach that Reform has. So let's get serious and, just allow time to pass. We still have 4 more years until the general election. And I think Reform, they're going downhill. They're not going to make it, quite honestly. So we'll just have to see what Rupert Lowe has in mind. We're still waiting for his decision on what to do, but once he makes his decision, I think a lot of voters who were former voters of Reform, they'll jump ship. They will abandon Nigel Farage's whole pet project, and they'll join forces and support Rupert Lowe. Because I think Rupert Lowe is a man of integrity. I think Ben Habib is a true man of integrity. I think Nick Tanconi is a powerful figure. And these 3, let's just say 3 musketeers, let's call it that, they can really form a coalition and become a formidable opponent against the Uni Party and possibly Um, be a powerful right wing party in sitting in the Houses of Parliament. Can you imagine that? So be optimistic, guys. Look forward to the next general election. I think things are changing for the better. Hopefully, I do pray that things will get better. But anyways, those are my thoughts. Sorry for rambling on, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. Share your thoughts about these local election results. My throat is hurting, so I'm going to end the video there. Guardian Mode clocking out. I'll see you soon.